Hello everyone, it's Leisha, Globetrotting Fundraiser, coming to you from beautiful and warm Brisbane. I've been attending the Fundraising Institute of Australia's conference, and I'm here to introduce my friend Ross from the Alfred Foundation.
Hello.
He was one of my co-presenters for the Gifts and Wills Masterclass, and he's here to talk a little bit about a great tool that he has used in the past called a propensity model for gifts and wills. So I'll let him explain how they used it.
Yeah, I've used it in a couple of organisations that I've worked in, different programs, different scales of programs, and both of them great results. I thought I'd just share a case study with where I've used it in both of those organisations. First one in a large national health medical professional organisation had a large number of supporters, but a relatively small number of Gifts and Wills supporters and a relatively small pool of people in the pipeline who had registered an interest or shown some indication that they might be thinking about a gift in the will, and then a small number of people who had confirmed. So the challenge there was really about finding and identifying amongst a huge database of well over 100,000 supporters actively giving and donating to that particular organisation, who would be the best people to try and have a conversation with and try and identify some level of interest in gifts in wills, so we can channel and focus our attention to have those wonderful inspirational conversations and encourage people to consider doing this. So the propensity model was just a way of identifying amongst that huge cohort of people who the preferred options might be, so we could target having some direct mail and some telemarketing activity going on, and my team could then focus their energy on having those conversations. In that organisation, we had limited information outside of the donation histories that the supporters had, but there was a lot of historical information around how they'd supported the organisation in the past, how many gifts they'd given, what size of gifts, whether there were any gaps in that giving, whether there were some lapsings in the giving. So the propensity model was, in that particular instance, was focused predominantly on the recency, frequency, value model of identifying supporters. So we used it to identify or allocate a scoring, if you want, to the 100,000 people, and try and identify the top echelon of those and try and focus our energy on that. For the donation history, it was a fairly simple exercise. We did most of that in-house with our data analysis team, of identifying the length of support, so how long supporters have been providing support to the charity for, and that was obviously one of the highest ranking scores. So those people who've been supporting the organisation for over 20 years of the history that had been around scored most highly, and those people who are more recent acquisitions scored most lowly, and then we had a huge group of people in the middle. Layer on top of that, the numbers of gifts that people had given, so how regularly they had been supporting the organisation. Obviously those people who'd been donating on a monthly basis scored highly because there were large numbers of gifts, but those people who'd been supporting us for a long period of time and giving us one-off cash gifts to our cash appeals, they also scored highly as well. Right. So you start to see a bit of a matrix of the people who'd been donating us for a long period of time, those people who'd given us large numbers of gifts. We also looked at the value of the giving as well, so cumulatively over the lifetime of those supporters who'd given significant levels of giving, and then again they scored most highly. So you end up with just a little bit of a matrix, and obviously the people who scored most highly in all three of those categories get to the top of that matrix, and that's where you focus your time, energy and effort on. There's other criteria. If you've got the data in your systems, you can also overlay the age demographics or the age profile, even if you're using some sort of age bands system that you're able to overlay across your database. So again, those people who were perhaps slightly older and had been supporting us for a longer period of time scored most highly. So you start to build the identity of your database and overlaying that scoring, allocating scores to those people who've probably got the highest propensity to consider gifts in wills. So we use that, and that's a fairly basic way of using a propensity model. If you've got limited information about your supporters, that's probably the most that you can expect to do. The history of the giving, the length, the value, the age demographic. You might then start to overlay issues, sort of geography and where people are located as well, if there's a high propensity to do that. So that's really then focusing our attention on who would then be included in the direct mail appeals, who would be selected for telemarketing to have that conversation, to ask that wonderful question, You've been such a wonderful supporter of ours.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered including the charity in your will and identifying where the level of interest is? So that was a great way of minimizing the numbers of people that we were able to do and maximize the probability of us having a successful, cool conversation with them. The second way of using, and I used it in an organisation that was an animal charity, where there was a bit of richer data around the supporters, so how they'd interacted with the charity, whether they'd adopted an animal from the charity, whether they visited the vet clinic as well as the financial support and contributions they made. And alongside that, there was also some indications of whether they'd signed up to advocacy campaigns, responded to surveys, become a member of the charity, and attended events. So there was a sort of richness around the other indications of their connectedness and their commitment to the cause. So then you start to see there's a bit more of a three-dimensional approach to this. You're not just looking at them in a purely two-dimensional financial supporter way. You can start to build a picture of those people who've probably got the highest levels of commitment or engagement to your cause. Again, you start allocating scores, and you give rankings to those people who have completed surveys and the numbers of surveys they've completed, the number of appeals or campaigns that they've signed up to, whether they've adopted an animal, whether they're active in our social media or the community that we have. And again, the people who score highly in all of those, you add them all up, you end up with a ranking, which is a wonderful way of identifying those people at the very, very top of that ranking list. When you start to overlay all of that information, those people you'd safely assume are the most highly committed and most highly engaged. And it really helped override the focus on just the financial side of things, because what you might end up with some organisations is those people who are those true advocates and passionate supporters, but they might not support you in a financial way. So it kind of overrides and helps balance that. So you can have conversations with people you know are truly committed to the cause. We did that for a slightly different purpose, because we actually ended up that charity was very fortunate to have a very large pool of existing Gift and Will supporters. They'd identified through many years of stewardship and engagement with that group, people who told the charity that they had included a gift in their will or were thinking or considering doing it. So the challenge there was really, from a relationship management point of view, where do you focus the resources you've got? How do you prioritise the conversations? Who it is that you invite in and try and engage with them and connect with them, or keep engaged and connected with them? And who are the people who are most likely to leave a more significant gift because they've got higher levels of commitment or intention to support the cause? So there it was really about identifying the most committed supporters who were already Gift and Will supporters, and then allocating and ranking the types of engagement and touch points you might have with them, making sure that we've assigned relationship managers who are really fully engaged and able to connect and keep people connected to the most significant and committed supporters. And those people who had still confirmed that they had included a gift in their will, but might have lower levels of other types of engagement or commitment to the organisation. You could maintain a good, solid base level of stewardship. You could focus your time and attention on those people who had demonstrated through those other means of identifying interest and engagement that they were fully committed to the cause. And it was a wonderful way of helping the Gift and Will's relationship managers focus their energy and identify through that the top ranking Gift and Will supporters who they might have conversations with. And what that ended up with was probably, if you'd spent some time and had managed to have conversations with all the thousands and thousands of people who had been identified over the years, you would have figured that out yourself over time. It's wonderful that instinctual, you look back at the notes and you look back at the history of the engagement that you've had with Gift and Will supporters. You can see the people who are more highly engaged. You can see the levels of conversations, the other ways that they're committed and engaged to the organisation in the notes. So it's really reinforcing that through a data-driven way and helping you navigate and direct the resources in the best possible way. So it ended up with a clearer and cleaner way of providing some criteria to help navigate the relationship management and direct the appropriate level of stewardship and contact you might have. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. This is a way of helping you navigate that. It's not the be-all and end-all. It's by no means a perfect system or way of doing it, but it's a great way of looking at a large amount of data and a large numbers of supporters and helping you prioritize and direct where your energy and efforts go towards. But there will always be the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, there's always outliers.
Yes.
And it's great because knowing full well that we don't have infinite resources, especially in gifts and wills, seeing as it's something that's so misunderstood, and a lot of people in management and our boards, they think that these gifts and wills just fall from the sky.
Yes.
And so if you're able to take that time to do that propensity model and choosing the criteria elements and then rating people in your database, then you can demonstrate. That's a great tool also to build a case for support to invest in gifts and wills in your organization. And I think it's something, you can make it as elaborate or as simple as you want. And especially, like, I see this as something fantastic for small shops if they can just wrap their head around, like a very simple propensity model, so they can start doing some gifts and wills as well. So that's great.
Yeah, and it was wonderful to see. We actually did some cross-referencing and some collaboration on that as well, making sure that the supporters that we had identified might be the most likely to leave us gifts and wills. We compared that group in the way that we'd ranked and scored the levels of commitment and engagement against the group of supporters that had already told us that they had engaged and confirmed they had a gift and a will. It was a very, very close match. We also took it a step further and looked at historically at the data and the profile and criteria that those supporters who had passed already and we had actually received their gifts, whether they matched those two other groups, those people who had currently confirmed but were still alive, and those people who had yet to show any sort of interest but we thought might be most likely to do it. And there was such a close collaboration, sort of fit between all three of those groups that you had a reasonably high degree of confidence that you'd identified the most committed supporters when you look back historically at those three different groups. So it's a wonderful way of doing it, and say you can dial it up, dial it down. If you've got limited resources, try and do that in-house, try and allocate what's the right level of measurement for commitment and engagement that you've got. What are the indications that you've got data for that your financial supporters are doing things outside of that financial support? Or, in the second case, we actually brought in, a wonderful consultant who helped us navigate the complexities of some of that data management, and was able to look at cross-referencing against those three groups as well, to help with validating that the results we were talking to the right people at the end of the day.
That's right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Ross. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this great example, and I hope you found this useful. And if you have any questions or comments, write down in the comment section. Thank you.
See ya.